Okay, thank you, and thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really thrilled to be here. As a matter of fact, I put out on Facebook this morning, speaking at Wharton, really pumped. I'm the founder of Ampleharvest.org. You'll learn in a few minutes what that's all about. I'm a master gardener. I'm a Rutgers environmental steward, and I'm a CNN hero. And a few days ago, I was on the front page of the Huffington Post a little bit. I want to talk for a few minutes. Mary started talking about hunger. I want to talk really so everybody grasps the magnitude of hunger as I see it in this country. We have 49 million food insecure people. That's a fancy word that says either you don't have enough food or you're at real risk of not having enough food. So if you happen to open your cupboard and there's a single can of tuna fish, you're not hungry yet, but there's real risk you're going to be. I was always bad in math. I thought D was a numeric grade. So to put the number in perspective, instead of saying 49 million, 49 billion, we hear big numbers. If you took the combined population of these 23 of our 50 states, and this is not a recent electoral map, by the way, if you take the combined populations, the total populations of these states, that's 49.5 million people. So now you have an idea of how much of our country is in need of food. These are emails that I've gotten from people who have emailed me, and I got to tell you, this is personally heart-wrenching, when they say, I need food. Currently unemployed, I have one child, one on the way, and even though my husband's working, we really have a hard time making ends meet. Lost my job last January, unable to put food in my fridge, I'm at my wit's end. I'm scared, I'm frustrated, and everyone's depending on me to feed them. These are a tiny sample of the emails that I get, and these are real people with real problems. These may be people you know, people in the community. At the same, you should also know, recently the USDA just released 1 out of 4 children under 6 in this country is now living in a food insecure home. That's frightening. Meanwhile, on the one side we have hungry America, and the other side we have 40+ million people, and you may be amongst them, who grow food in home gardens. I'm one of them. This is from a 2010 study from the National Gardening Association. And I also get emails from people saying, I've got beans, potatoes, squash, beets, broccoli, etc. I want to donate. I've got extra vegetables I'd like to donate. So this is the dichotomy that we have in America. The problem isn't that we don't have enough food. The problem is we waste a lot of what we have. And this really drove the point home to me. Bill Marsh is a photographer for the New York Times. What you're looking at is a photograph he put together, I think this is the 2007 or 8, in the New York Times, of the representation of the food wasted in America by a family of 4 in a month. It's a pound a person a day, nearly 100 billion pounds a year. This stuck with me, and it should stick with all of you. The issue is that as gardeners and farmers, we throw a lot of food away because it's left to rot in the garden, but therein lies the opportunity that we have to take the food while it's still good and do something worthwhile with it. And this is our resource that we can actually gather and help America. Here's the model in America, and the folks from Abundance are here, so they're going to keep me honest. But basically, we have around 202, I believe, Feeding America-related food banks in the country. Feeding America, by the way, is the overreaching organization that sort of is the super organization, and they work with the food banks. They get food to around 30,000 plus food pantries across America. These are the little places in a house of worship, in a YMCA, in your community where people are hungry. They come to on a weekly or whatever basis to get the food assistance that they need. The deliveries, however, to the food pantries are on a weekly or biweekly or not frequent basis. I normally give this presentation in like half an hour, 45 minutes. Dave said you got 10. So I had to redo this whole thing, and it was an eye-opener for me. So you were the first folks seeing this model as I realized what I had built, and I didn't see the picture until I did this whole model you're about to see. So Feeding America is the central organization for the food banks in America. Feeding America then moves the funds and the food to the food banks, to 202 food bank members, I believe is the current number that they have. When that gets to a food bank, the food bank turns around and distributes it to the food pantries. They also work with other agencies like shelters and what have you. I'm talking food pantries right now. So the model sort of looks like this. We have Feeding America getting resources to food banks, getting resources to food pantries. This is what we've had. Now, there's a local food drive in your community. Maybe it's the firehouse, your church, what have you. Bring stuff in, and what's the one thing they always say? Canned goods or dry goods. There's a reason for that. The reason, and by the way, I should say, when the food, that stuff then gets to the food bank, and the food bank turns around, divvies it up, and gets it out to the food pantries. The challenge is this. The delivery cycle for most food banks to food pantries is maybe weekly or bi-weekly. It's not a daily type of thing in most cases. And therein lies the problem. That's why they can't take produce. Because produce doesn't have a shelf life. It can't sit on a shelf for days or weeks at a time without going south. That was the problem. In March of 2009, I had an idea. I said, wait a minute. And as somebody who grows a lot, and I hate waste, if I could get the food to a neighborhood food pantry, I bypassed the log jam at the food drive. The problem is, and that's, by the way, me in front of my garden, looking a little craggier than I look now. The problem is, I can't find food pantries. They're not on the internet. They're not on the yellow pages. I Googled. I live in northern New Jersey, in a rural town. I Googled food pantries and said the nearest one was 25 miles away in another town of Morristown. I have 5 or 6 in my town. It then dawned on me, wait a minute. Other gardeners around America have the exact same problem I'm having. If I can't find it, they can't find it. It then dawned, what if I made something that allowed gardeners to find the food pantries? And in one night, this idea, which has since evolved into Ampleharvest.org, came into my mind. And as I explained to somebody a few moments ago, I just basically registered the domain the next morning, then figured out what I was going to do. This describes many things in my life. But the piece that I ended up realizing that was missing and building suddenly was there, that piece of the supply chain. Now, with that piece in place, the stuff that comes from the food banks, as it always has, will go to the food pantries and go to the people in the community. The locally grown garden produce that could not typically be handled by the food banks, and I should put a qualification, some food banks are exceptions. Phil Abundance does have a program where they have trucks coming around picking up food, and there are a few other food banks. I know San Francisco is another one. The majority of them don't touch produce, I should be clear about that. Now both processed food and locally grown produce can get to the families who need it. And by the way, when I finally drew this diagram and getting ready for this, I realized exactly what I had built. Because I was thinking I was feeding people, I didn't realize this is a supply chain component, which means I got to go back and read Adam Smith now. So anyway, this is what I ended up having built. This is a website called Ampleharvest.org. I should tell you the lady who actually did the web design for me is herself a former food pantry client, and she still lives in Section 8 housing, and she donated her time. The idea to get the point out that I strove for was to say we have a problem, we have an opportunity, we have a solution. 1, 2, 3. And that runs throughout all the literature, all the web pages, and everything. I started this in March of 2009. It became publicly available 7 weeks later in May of 2009. As of this point, almost 3,000 food pantries across all 50 states are registered on Ampleharvest.org and growing. And while I was in a session earlier, the 2,958th pantry, Echo Pantry in Madison, Wisconsin, registered. They sign up on their own as time goes on. Media coverage has been excellent. As a matter of fact, when I had run a real business, I had this type of press coverage, I would have been a gazillionaire. Press has loved it. In May, I was named CNN Hero, which was really kind of cool. The feedback and comments have been outstanding. I want to read the top one because it just goes to the point of how the response has been. Within an hour, I'm going to have to keep this short because I'm running out of time. Within an hour of registering, somebody's shown up with bags and bags of oranges. We're making heavy use of social networking, Twitter and Facebook. This is what my national map looks like right now. Pantries register themselves. It's a very quick and simple process. We give them media stuff to send out and flyers to put up. When a gardener wants to find a pantry, they say, I want to find. They put in information. A list of pantries come up, and then they deal directly with the pantry on their own. We've got an iPhone app, an Android app is under development. Other pieces are being added on. Also to help people who come to the site who are themselves hungry and we can't help, we shoot them right off to United Way. We collaborated with them on that. The EPA is now using Ampleharvest.org because they consider wasted food an environmental hazard. This has been the timeline. As you can see, a lot has been done in a very short time. It's just scratching the surface. Google, USDA, and many others have been immense backers of us. I believe I'm at the end, and I believe I'm out of time. I really want to thank everybody. I'm here for the day. I'd love to talk with anybody who has any questions about Ampleharvest.org. Thank you very, very much.